The Cathar Confederacy prided itself on technological superiority. The Four-Lag Empire boasted of martial prowess unmatched across 3 spiral arms. For decades, these two powers had waged a merciless war across the Xylos Belt, a resource-rich region spanning 17 star systems. Their bitter conflict had reduced once thriving worlds to irradiated husks, transformed vibrant nebulae into navigation hazards of scattered debris. Neither side gained lasting advantage. Neither would contemplate peace. Both mighty civilizations regarded other species with contempt, particularly humans. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, having achieved faster-than-light travel barely a century ago. Their territory was modest, their military unremarkable. They maintained careful neutrality in the Great Conflict, focusing instead on scientific endeavors and peaceful trade. The Cathar dismissed them as primitives playing at civilization. The Four-Lag considered them unworthy adversaries, lacking the warrior spirit. Both empires tolerated human presence only because humans stayed carefully out of their way. Kepler 186f stood as humanity's proudest scientific achievement, an isolated research outpost on the fringes of the Xylos Belt, dedicated to breakthrough studies in gravitational manipulation and space-time mechanics. The station housed 5,000 souls, scientists, engineers, support staff, and their families. Children played in hydroponics gardens while their parents unraveled cosmic mysteries. They believed their neutrality and scientific mission would protect them. That belief shattered when the Cathar 7th Battle Group, pursuing Four-Lag raiders, executed a tactical fold-space maneuver too close to the station. Perhaps it was miscalculation. Perhaps the Cathar admiral considered human casualties acceptable collateral damage. Perhaps both empires had grown too accustomed to treating other species as insignificant. Whatever the reason, the resulting gravitational distortion tore through Kepler 186f like a celestial scythe. Habitation rings crumpled. Atmosphere vented explosively into vacuum. Emergency broadcasts captured final moments of panic and terror before abrupt silence. News of the incident reached Cathar High Command within hours. Supreme Commander Vexrith dismissed it with a flick of his primary appendage. Regrettable but unavoidable in a war zone, his official statement declared. The humans should have recognized the risk of establishing facilities near our operational sphere. The Four-Lag Dominion Council proved equally unmoved. Overlord Kravanar issued a brief communiqué. While we condemn Cathar aggression in all forms, neutrals must accept certain hazards when positioning themselves near theaters of conflict. The Galactic Council, nominally responsible for interspecies mediation, convened an emergency session. After 3 days of deliberation, they issued a statement expressing profound concern about the unfortunate incident at Kepler 186f and urged all parties to exercise greater caution in proximity to civilian installations. No sanctions were proposed. No reparations demanded. The matter was considered closed. Throughout it all, Earth and her colonies maintained complete silence. No diplomatic protests. No emergency transmissions. No movement of military assets. The strange quiet puzzled junior intelligence analysts in both empires, but their superiors paid little attention. Humans were weak, divided, irrelevant. What could they possibly do? 2 weeks after the destruction of Kepler 186f, a major Cathar logistics hub on the edge of the Xylos Belt, long-range sensors detected an anomalous space-time disturbance. The duty officer, Subcommander Zexveer, frowned at his instruments. This doesn't match any known jump signature, he reported to his superior. It's almost as if the fabric of reality tore open silently, a gaping wound in space itself. No energy discharge accompanied the breach, only an expanding void of absolute darkness. The sensor officer's voice rose in pitch. Commander, there's something coming through. From the wound in reality emerged a single vessel. It dwarfed the largest Cathar dreadnoughts, its hull a perfect geometric shape that seemed to absorb rather than reflect scanning beams. No running lights adorned its angular, minimalist form. No identification transponder announced its presence. Its obsidian surface appeared utterly featureless, yet somehow threatened imminent destruction. Commander Grelvok of Kthar Defense Platform Nexus 7 observed the intruder with growing unease. Unidentified vessel. He transmitted on all frequencies. You have entered Kthar's sovereign space without authorization. Identify yourself immediately or face defensive measures. Silence answered him. Final warning, Grelvok transmitted. Identify yourself or be destroyed. The strange ship maintained its ominous silence. Launch interceptors, Grelvok ordered. Targeting solutions on the unidentified vessel. Prepare to fire main batteries on my command. 3 Kthar cruisers and 7 destroyer-class vessels moved to engage. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. They formed a precise attack pattern, maneuvering to surround the intruder. The black ship waited, motionless. All vessels, fire at will. Grelvok commanded. Energy beams lashed out. Missile salvos streaked across the void. Kthar gunners watched with satisfaction as their weapons struck the target. Then their satisfaction turned to horror. The weapons did not detonate against shields. They did not scorch hull plating. They simply ceased to exist as they approached the black vessel, swallowed by some unseen force that bent light and matter around the ship's hull. Then the nameless vessel responded. No weapon fired. No energy signature registered. Only ripples, invisible distortions in space-time itself, emanated from the geometric behemoth. The nearest Kthar cruiser suddenly compressed, its hull plates folding inward as if crushed by an immense, invisible hand. Metal buckled and twisted. Internal explosions flared briefly before the entire vessel collapsed into a dense ball of compacted matter no larger than a transport shuttle. The remaining ships attempted evasive maneuvers. It made no difference. One by one, they suffered the same fate, crushed, twisted, folded into unrecognizable masses by forces that defied conventional physics. No escape pods launched. No distress calls transmitted. Within minutes, nothing remained but drifting particles and frozen gases where proud warships had stood. By the 7 moons, whispered Grelvok, watching the sensor feeds in disbelief. What is that thing? The black ship turned slowly, orienting toward the defense platform itself. Emergency protocols, screamed Grelvok. Full power to defensive systems. Transmit all data to High Command. Black. Code. The commander's final words never reached their destination. The defense platform, with its crew of 3,000, collapsed into itself just as the warships had done. Only a small debris field marked its passing. The mysterious vessel hung motionless for several moments, as if contemplating its handiwork. Then it opened another tear in reality and vanished. News of the encounter spread rapidly through Kthar command networks. Initial reports were met with skepticism. Preposterous, declared Admiral Krenvath of the Imperial First Fleet. Some new four-lag weapon, perhaps, or a sensor malfunction. Dispatch a reconnaissance squadron to investigate. Similar disbelief greeted reports reaching four-lag high command. Kthar deception, growled General Drakmore. A pathetic attempt to explain the loss of their outpost. We will not be deceived. Both empires dispatched powerful reconnaissance forces to the site of the incident. Neither force returned, as additional reports filtered in from other border outposts, all describing the same enormous black ship, the same impossible weapons, the same total destruction. The leaders of both warring empires began to acknowledge a troubling possibility. They faced something unprecedented. The ship's configuration matches no known design in our databases, reported Kthar Chief Intelligence Analyst Vexmora to the High Command. However, certain elements of its basic geometry bear similarities to theoretical models developed by humans. Impossible, snapped Supreme Commander Vexrith. Humans lack the technological capability to construct such a vessel, let alone equip it with weapons beyond our comprehension. Nevertheless, Vexmora continued, the timing of this ship's appearance shortly after the Kepler, 186F incident cannot be coincidental, and the vessel's movements suggest purpose. It has targeted primarily military installations connected to the Kepler operation. Across the stars, in the granite halls of the Four-Lag Dominion Council, a similar conversation unfolded. This vessel, the troops have taken to calling it JÖRMUNGANDR after an ancient Terran myth of a world-encircling serpent, displays capabilities that should not exist, admitted First Strategist Korvac. And its pattern of attacks suggests intimate knowledge of both our military doctrine and technological capabilities. You imply human involvement? Overlord Kravenar's voice rumbled with skepticism. I state it as the most probable explanation, replied Korvac. The humans have maintained their suspicious silence. No diplomatic communication. No trade vessels. No intelligence chatter. It's as if they've gone completely dark while this JÖRMUNGANDR conducts its campaign. A laughable theory, Kravenar dismissed. Humans are traders and scientists, not warriors. They lack the resolve for true conflict. Perhaps we have misunderstood them, suggested Korvac quietly. Perhaps what we interpreted as weakness was merely patience. The vessel that would become known throughout the galaxy as JÖRMUNGANDR moved with methodical precision through the Xylos belt. It targeted specific military installations, command centers, logistics hubs, shipyards, and weapons platforms, all connected to the forces involved in the Kepler 186F incident. It never communicated, never issued demands or ultimatums. It simply appeared, destroyed, and vanished. Standard defensive measures proved completely ineffective. Energy shields collapsed under impossible gravitational stresses. Weapons fire disappeared before reaching the black hole. Attempts to use fold space drives to escape resulted in ships tearing themselves apart as local spacetime twisted in response to JÖRMUNGANDR's countermeasures. Tactical analysis revealed a chilling pattern. JÖRMUNGANDR didn't just counter Cthar and Four-Lag technologies. It turned them against themselves. The ship somehow understood the fundamental principles of both empires' most advanced systems and exploited inherent weaknesses neither had recognized. Dr. Zonval, lead scientist at Cthar Advanced Weapons Division, reviewed the data with growing horror. It's as if they've studied our technology for decades, he reported. These attacks precisely target systemic vulnerabilities in our gravitational field modulators. Vulnerabilities we ourselves only theorized last year. And these disruption patterns, they're exploiting quantum resonance frequencies unique to our shield harmonics. How could they possibly know these things? Demanded Admiral Krenvath. I believe, Zonval said hesitantly, they may have derived this knowledge from research conducted at Kepler 186F. A human science station? Impossible. Not impossible, Admiral. We dismissed their research as theoretical, harmless academic exercises. But what if they weren't developing weapons? What if they were developing understanding? Similar revelations echoed across Four-Lag analysis centers. Their greatest military minds reached the same disturbing conclusion. Humans had spent decades studying both empires while appearing passive and unthreatening. They had compiled exhaustive data on technologies, tactics, and capabilities. And now they were using that knowledge with devastating effect. Glimpses inside JÖRMUNGANDR itself remained frustratingly rare. A single damaged sensor probe managed to capture fragmentary images of what appeared to be the command bridge before being destroyed. The footage showed a precisely arranged chamber of austere design. Human officers in stark black uniforms operated control stations with mechanical efficiency. At the center stood a figure presumed to be the supreme commander, tall, gaunt, face expressionless as carved stone. No words were exchanged, no emotions displayed, only purpose, cold and absolute. Intelligence analysts studied these fragments obsessively. Note the complete absence of personalization, observed Four-Lag psychostrategist Mavkor. No insignia of rank, no decorations, no indicators of individual identity. Even their movements are synchronized to an unnatural degree. What does it mean? Asked his superior. It suggests conditioning beyond anything we've seen before, Mavcor replied. These aren't ordinary military personnel. They've been somehow altered, perhaps survivors of similar incidents trained specifically for this mission, or perhaps something else entirely. Whatever they are, they've sublimated every aspect of individuality to their purpose. And that purpose is retribution, said Mavcor simply. Precise, calculated, and absolute. Across the galaxy, JÖRMUNGANDR became a name whispered with growing terror. Trading vessels altered course to avoid regions where the Black Ship had been sighted. Neutral worlds increased defensive preparations. Even species uninvolved in the Cathar Forlag conflict began reassessing their posture toward humanity. The Silent Ones have awakened, declared Xanthor, elder sage of the Belharathi conclave. We were fools to mistake their restraint for weakness. Throughout civilized space, diplomatic and military communications buzzed with rumors and theories about the human vessel. Some claimed it utilized dimensional technology from beyond known space. Others insisted it represented an alliance with heretofore unknown cosmic entities. The most disturbing theory suggested that humans had always possessed such capabilities, but had concealed them while studying the other species, waiting for the right moment to reveal their true strength. As the pattern of JÖRMUNGANDR's attacks became clear, analysts in both empires reached a troubling conclusion. The ship was systematically eliminating every military asset connected to the Kepler 186F incident, working its way up the chain of command toward those ultimately responsible. In an unprecedented move, representatives from Cathar High Command secretly contacted their Forlag counterparts. Ancient enemies contemplated the unthinkable cooperation against a common threat. This human vessel must be destroyed, stated Supreme Commander Vexrith bluntly in the secure communication. It threatens both our civilizations. For once, we agree, responded Overlord Kravanear. But conventional tactics have failed utterly. We require a new approach. The plan they devised was desperate but logical. Combine the might of both empires in a single, overwhelming force. Concentrate sufficient firepower to overcome even JÖRMUNGANDR's extraordinary defenses. Draw the Black Ship into a carefully prepared killing zone where specialized weapons could be brought to bear. The chosen battlefield was the Nexus 9-star system, a heavily fortified Cathar military hub with multiple defensive installations and a strategic position that would force JÖRMUNGANDR to commit to engagement without easy escape routes. The combined armada assembled there represented the largest concentration of military power in a millennium. Over 300 capital ships, including dreadnoughts, carriers, and specialized weapons platforms, supported by thousands of smaller craft. Overkill, commented Cathar Fleet Admiral Zexkor with grim satisfaction as he surveyed the assembled forces from his command dreadnought. Even this mysterious vessel cannot withstand such concentrated firepower. Forlag Battlemaster Drakvor, commanding the Dominion contingent from his flagship, was less certain. We face an unknown enemy wielding technology beyond our comprehension. Conventional calculations of force superiority may not apply. You suggest we should cower in fear? Sneered Zexkor. I suggest we should not underestimate an adversary that has thus far destroyed everything sent against it, replied Drakvor coldly. Particularly one that seems to understand our capabilities better than we understand its. Their debate became academic when long-range sensors detected the now familiar space-time distortion. JÖRMUNGANDR had arrived. It comes directly, observed Drakvor with professional admiration. No hesitation, no attempt at evasion. It knows our trap awaits, yet proceeds anyway. Arrogance, countered Zexkor. It has grown overconfident from easy victories against isolated forces. Today, it learns the difference. The Black Ship advanced slowly toward the center of the assembled armada, making no aggressive moves, maintaining its characteristic silence. It appeared exactly as described in previous encounters, geometric, obsidian, impossibly massive, absorbing light and sensor probes alike. All vessels maintain formation, ordered Zexkor. Allow it to penetrate our outer defensive screen before engaging. We will close the noose and destroy it with concentrated fire. The plan proceeded with precision. JÖRMUNGANDR continued its inexorable advance, penetrating deeper into the carefully arranged formation. Ships of both empires, ancient enemies now united in desperation, tracked the intruder with weapons primed. Target is within optimal engagement range, reported Zexcor's tactical officer. All vessels report weapons lock. Execute primary attack pattern, ordered Zexcor. Across the vast armada, weapons officers received the command and responded. Thousands of energy beams, missile salvos, and exotic particle weapons discharged simultaneously in a symphonic crescendo of destruction. The combined firepower could have reduced a small moon to molten slag. For a brief moment, JÖRMUNGANDR disappeared entirely, engulfed in the blinding maelstrom of concentrated weapons fire. A cheer began to rise from crew members watching tactical displays throughout the fleet. The cheer died as sensors penetrated the energy storm. JÖRMUNGANDR remained, apparently untouched, at the center of the inferno. Impossible, gasped Zexcor. Nothing could withstand such firepower. It doesn't withstand, observed Drakvor with dawning horror. It redirects. Look at the energy patterns. It's somehow channeling our own attacks away from itself, creating some kind of space-time distortion field. Maintain fire, commanded Zexcor. All vessels, continuous maximum discharge. We must overwhelm its defenses through sustained assault. The Armada complied, pouring unprecedented destructive energy toward the motionless black ship. Stars themselves might have withered under such an onslaught. Still, JÖRMUNGANDR endured, silent and implacable at the heart of the storm. Then, after absorbing minutes of continuous bombardment, JÖRMUNGANDR finally responded. The black ship began to rotate slowly on its axis. As it turned, the very fabric of space around it seemed to twist and distort. Gravity waves rippled outward in complex, precisely modulated patterns. Where these waves intersected, they created nodes of intensified gravitational force thousands of times stronger than normal. The effects on the attacking fleet were catastrophic and immediate. Ships caught at these intersection points imploded instantly, crushed by irresistible gravitational forces. Vessels attempting evasive maneuvers found their navigation systems compromised as local spacetime curved unpredictably around them. Jump drives activated and panic failed catastrophically, tearing ships apart or sending them plunging into distorted pocket dimensions from which they would never return. It's not just attacking our ships, realized Drakvor, watching in horror as the carefully orchestrated battle plan collapsed into chaos. It's attacking space itself, creating localized regions where normal physics simply breaks down. Throughout the Armada, similar realizations dawned too late. JÖRMUNGANDR wasn't fighting ships. It was fighting reality, reshaping the battlefield on a fundamental level that neither Cthar nor Forlag technology could counter. Emergency jump protocols, ordered Zexcor desperately. All vessels withdraw immediately. But escape proved impossible. JÖRMUNGANDR had created a complex gravitational web that prevented fold-spaced jumps across the entire system. Conventional engines failed as propulsion systems could no longer generate coherent thrust in the distorted spacetime. The slaughter continued with mechanical precision. JÖRMUNGANDR targeted the largest vessels first, eliminating command ships and heavy weapons platforms with singular gravitational implosions. Smaller craft received less specialized attention. Caught in broader distortion fields, they collided with each other or tore themselves apart, attempting to navigate impossible spatial geometries. By the battle's midpoint, over half the combined fleet had been destroyed or rendered combat ineffective. The survivors faced a grim reality. They were not engaged in combat, but in execution. On the command deck of the Cthar flagship, Admiral Zexcor watched tactical displays with numb horror as his forces disintegrated. "We never had a chance," he whispered. "All our power, all our technology, useless." Across the battlefield, on the Forlag command vessel, Battlemaster Drakvor reached the same conclusion. "We misunderstood the nature of this conflict," he told his executive officer. "We thought numbers and firepower would prevail. But we fight an enemy that has transcended conventional warfare entirely." As if to punctuate this realization, JÖRMUNGANDR suddenly accelerated, targeting the two command vessels specifically. The black ship emitted no energy signature, fired no visible weapon. It simply approached, trailed by warping distortions in the very fabric of reality. "Brace for impact," ordered Zek's core, though no impact in traditional terms would come. The Cathar flagship began to twist, its massive hull plates bending under impossible stresses. Internal bulkheads buckled. Power conduits ruptured. The mighty dreadnought, pride of the Cathar fleet, folded inward like crumpled paper, deck by deck, section by section. Admiral Zek's final transmission was brief. It knew everything about us, and we knew nothing about it. The Forelag command vessel suffered an equally catastrophic fate. Its reinforced hull, designed to withstand the most powerful conventional weapons, offered no protection against fundamental distortions in spacetime itself. The massive warship compressed to a fraction of its original volume in seconds. Battlemaster Drakvor stood rigid on his command platform as reality twisted around him. "So, this is how the mighty Forelag Dominion ends," he remarked to no one in particular. "Not in glorious battle, but in humbling lesson." With both command ships destroyed, the remaining vessels of the once mighty armada scattered in disarray. Some attempted to flee using conventional drives. Others, desperate to escape, activated emergency jump systems despite the distortion field, tearing themselves apart in the process. A few captains, recognizing the futility of resistance or escape, shut down all systems and awaited their fate. JÖRMUNGANDR hunted them methodically, one by one, until nothing remained but expanding clouds of debris and radiation. The combined might of the galaxy's two greatest military powers had been utterly destroyed by a single vessel. When the final ship had been eliminated, JÖRMUNGANDR hung motionless in the center of the vast debris field, a black monolith surrounded by the scattered remains of hundreds of vessels and tens of thousands of lives. It remained there, silent and still, for several hours. Then, without warning, JÖRMUNGANDR began broadcasting. The transmission went out simultaneously on all standard communication frequencies, encoded in Cathar, Forelag, and Galactic Standard protocols. It contained no demands, no declaration of victory, no diplomatic communication of any kind. Instead, it transmitted only the final sensor records from Kepler 186F research station. The recordings were horrifying in their authenticity. Emergency klaxons wailing, terrified voices shouting orders, and warnings, the sounds of structural collapse and explosive decompression. The desperate final attempts of the station's commanders to organize evacuation. The screams of civilians as habitation modules crumbled. Parents trying to reach children. Researchers frantically transmitting final data packets. Medical personnel overwhelmed by casualties. And finally, silence. The absolute silence of vacuum after the station's destruction. The recording played in its entirety, 11 minutes and 37 seconds of escalating horror followed by emptiness. When it concluded, a single image appeared in the transmission, the insignia of the United Earth Directorate, a stylized planet with a single star above it. Then the transmission cut off abruptly. Throughout inhabited space, reactions to JÖRMUNGANDR's message varied by species and political alignment, but all shared one common element: fear. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber, usually filled with procedural debates and diplomatic maneuvering, sat mostly silent as representatives contemplated the implications of what had transpired. "We must reach out to Earth," suggested Councillor Zevdar of the Arcadian Concordat. "Open diplomatic channels. Seek understanding." "With what assurances?" countered Belcourt of the Thrax hegemony. "This JÖRMUNGANDR demonstrates capabilities beyond anything we've witnessed. If humans possess such technology, what prevents them from deploying more such vessels? From expanding beyond retribution to conquest, they have already demonstrated remarkable restraint, observed Elder Nyarval of the Sentient Collective. JÖRMUNGANDR targeted only military assets directly connected to the Kepler 186F incident. No civilian targets, no neutral parties, no indiscriminate destruction. Cold comfort to the Kthar and Forelag, muttered Belcourt. Perhaps, replied Nyarval, but instructive nonetheless. The humans could have unleashed this weapon against civilian worlds, against population centers. They chose precision instead, surgical removal of those responsible for the attack on their research station. The council chambers fell silent as delegates considered this perspective. What do we actually know about humans? Asked Zevdar eventually. We've traded with them, observed their scientific endeavors, maintained diplomatic courtesies. But have we ever truly understood them? We believe them technologically inferior, admitted Nyarval. Politically divided, militarily weak. It appears we were catastrophically wrong on all counts. After extensive debate, the Council approved a formal diplomatic mission to Earth. The most skilled negotiators from multiple species would attempt to open meaningful dialogue with humanity to understand their intentions and, hopefully, establish lasting peace. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, attitudes toward humans underwent rapid revision. Trading partners who had previously exploited humanity's perceived weakness suddenly offered generous terms. Minor aggressions against human interests abruptly ceased. Species that had dismissed humans as insignificant newcomers now studied their every communication, searching for hidden meanings and indications of true capabilities. 3 weeks after the destruction of the combined fleet, the tear in reality reopened near the debris field. JÖRMUNGANDR emerged briefly, as if surveying the aftermath of its work. Then, apparently satisfied, it slipped back through the spatial rift, which closed behind it with a final gravitational ripple. The massive black ship did not reappear. Earth and her colonies maintained their silence for another month before finally reopening normal diplomatic and commercial channels. Their communications made no mention of JÖRMUNGANDR, the Kepler 186F incident, or the destruction of the Kthar and Forelag forces. When Galactic Council representatives finally arrived at Earth, they were received with customary human politeness. Their questions about JÖRMUNGANDR met with studied incomprehension. We're not familiar with any vessel by that name, stated Earth's chief diplomatic officer, expression perfectly neutral. Our military roster contains no such ship. When presented with sensor recordings and debris analysis, the human officials examined the data with apparent interest. Fascinating technology, commented the head of Earth Science Directorate. We'd be very interested in studying these gravitational manipulation techniques if you have more concrete information. The diplomatic mission departed Earth with more questions than answers. Had JÖRMUNGANDR been a singular creation, now decommissioned or hidden? Did humanity possess a fleet of such vessels, held in reserve? Was the ship's appearance a calculated message, a demonstration of capability designed to establish humanity's position in the galactic order? Whatever the truth, the consequences were undeniable. The Kthar Confederacy and Forelag Empire, devastated by their losses, signed an unprecedented peace accord, ending decades of conflict. Both civilizations turned inward, focusing on rebuilding rather than expansion. Across inhabited space, diplomatic archives were updated with a new classification for humanity. Approach with extreme caution. Military capabilities significantly exceed apparent technological level. History suggests peaceful intentions, but severe response to aggression. In a monitoring station at the edge of human space, a Thrax intelligence operative studied the final recorded image of JÖRMUNGANDR before its disappearance. For months, analysts had debated the vessel's origins, capabilities, and current location. They've been silent for too long, he murmured to his assistant. Building colonies, trading resources, sharing medical knowledge. Always careful to appear unthreatening. Always maintaining just enough military presence to discourage minor aggression, but never enough to seem expansionist. Perfect camouflage, agreed his subordinate, while developing capabilities beyond our comprehension. Not camouflage, corrected the senior operative. Preference. They genuinely desire peace. But now we understand the price of forcing them to war. He magnified a section of the image, focusing on the geometrically perfect hull of the black ship, a vessel that had single-handedly changed the balance of power across the galaxy. Remember this lesson, he said quietly. The true measure of a species is not how eagerly they resort to violence, but how thoroughly they execute it when finally provoked. The humans were silent for a reason. Let's hope we never give them cause to speak again.